May 25, 1833, the Charleston Mercury, Charleston, South Carolina. From the Cincinnati Mirror, Early Times in the West. The Lonesome Post-Oak. About 7 miles north of this town is a very remarkable spot. A solitary post oak stands in the barren, in the forks of the roads, and has obtained universally the name of the Lonesome Post-Oak. In the early settlement of this country, about 35 years ago, this was the only tree to be seen for many miles round, whence its name. It was then tall, green, and flourishing. It is now, however, a leafless, branchless, thunder-riven, shattered trunk, sending up its shafts as straight as the mainmast of a ship of war. Superstition has, therefore, and still guards the spot. The tree is looked upon with something like the same veneration with which the Egyptian regards his pyramids, those grim sentinels of eternity. The place is remarkable for a very severe battle, fought by Big Harp and Davis. The Big Harp and Little Harp, his brother, were the terror of the surrounding country in those early times. Two more execrable monsters never disgraced humanity. They lived with 2 women, as bad as themselves, in a cave about 20 miles from this tree. Blood and massacre were their delight. It was their custom to sally forth and, without any known reason, to murder without distinction all the men, women, and children they could find. As the country filled up, the people could no longer submit to their horrid depredations. Men and dogs collected and took the pursuit. They came on the 2 harps in a narrow valley at about 10 miles from this tree. They immediately mounted their horses and dashed off in the direction of the cave. In going about 5 miles, Davis, whose horse was very fleet, had left his companions and caught up with the Big Harp, he having previously separated from his brother, the Little Harp. Here were 2 powerful men armed with rifles, butcher knives, and tomahawks, by themselves, far from health, and bent on death. Davis well knew that if overpowered, he would certainly be killed, and Harp had determined to die rather than be taken alive. They passed and repassed each other, frequently making blows without effect, each dreading to fire for fear of missing, and thereby placing himself at the mercy of his adversary. Finally, the horse of Big Harp fell with and through his rider, then rose and galloped off. Harp sprang to his feet and fired at Davis's horse, which reared and fell. They were now not more than 10 yards apart. Harp, whose sagacity was equal to his courage and villainy, kept dodging and springing from side to side, approaching Davis, however, by imperceptible degrees. Davis, discovering he would soon lose the benefit of his gun, now fired in his turn, but without effect. Each man drew his knife, and they closed in mortal struggle. Very soon they fell side by side, but at this juncture, a large wolf dog of Davis's came to his master's assistance and seized Harp by the throat. This produced a diversion in favor of Davis, who immediately recovered himself and stabbed Harp to the heart. The hideous yell, which the wretch sent us, is still to be heard on dark nights, ringing wildly along the heath. Some of Davis's friends soon joined him. They dug a hole and buried Harp at the foot of the Lonesome Post-Oak. It is currently believed that the ghost of Harp still walks in that neighborhood. I myself heard a respectable old farmer say that he, on returning home from Hopkinsville, one moonshiny night, heard someone yelling most dismally, that on passing the post-oak, he saw the ghost of Big Harp standing on the very top of the tree, bolt upright, clad in shining armor, and motionless as a sentinel. Some of the neighbors, however, doubt the correctness of the old man's vision on that occasion. They say he had been tending an election, was rather deep in his libations, and got his brains muddled in with new corn whiskey, and had mistaken for the ghost of Harp a large white owl that was accustomed to sit on the top of the tree and hoot to the moon on cold frosty nights. I, for myself, denounce the report of the old man's drinking too much as an atrocious calumny, for to my own knowledge he belongs to the Temperance Society and is a very zealous and leading member thereof. Little Harp escaped, went down the Mississippi, and joined the celebrated Mason and his gang at Stack Island. Soon after Harp joined him, Mason attacked a flat boat from Cincinnati and killed all the hands. For this, a large reward was offered from Mason, to obtain which, Little Harp decoyed him to Natchez and there informed against and betrayed his friend. On Mason's trial, Harp himself was recognized, was tried, and found guilty, and on the same day that Mason was hung, he also expiated his many crimes on the gallows. This Mason was a very remarkable and extraordinary man. He was distinguished by a strong double row of under and upper teeth that clenched together with the energy and tenacity of a steel trap. F. Hopkinsville, Kentucky. August 28, 1891. Kendallville Standard, Kendallville, Noble County, Indiana. A famous tree. It bore a murderer's head and was twice struck by lightning. In conversation with some friends at the Willard the other night, says the Louisville Courier-Journal, the Honorable John Young Brown spoke of a famous oak tree in Webster County that was, from 1811 till 1860, the object that marked the corner of Henderson, Union, and Hopkins counties. The tree has a history. About the beginning of this century, 2 men and 3 women came into Kentucky from North Carolina. The men were the brothers Harp, Micajah, and Wiley. The elder was a man of gigantic stature, raw-boned, muscular, and athletic. The younger, rather small in size, but very agile in his movements, and hardy of physical constitution. Both were fiendish in disposition, passionate, ferocious, and bloodthirsty. Robbery was their trade, and murder their amusement. The women who accompanied them were their wives, Big Harp, as the elder was called, having 2, and Little Harp, the younger one. A few days after their advent into Kentucky, on the upper Green River, they murdered a man named Langford for no reason that was ever discovered, except their passion for shedding human blood. They were apprehended for the crime and lodged in jail at Danville, from which they managed to escape. Soon after, they murdered a small mill boy in Adair County, son of Colonel Trabue. Pursuing their way to western Kentucky, they murdered in succession 3 men, Dooley, Gilmore, and Hudgen. Finally, they murdered a whole family of women and children named Stigall, and a guest of the family, one Love, and set fire to the building. A posse under the lead of Captain Leeper, a powerful and fearless man, pursued them, and a shot from Leeper's rifle brought down Big Harp near the foot of the tree mentioned by Mr. Brown. He was desperately wounded when Stigall, the head of the family murdered by the miscreants, came up and dispatched him. The young Harp escaped and was afterward apprehended and hanged for a murder he had committed in Mississippi. Big Harp's head was severed from his body, and someone, ascending the tree spoken of, then a slender sapling, severed the trunk near the top and, sharpening the standing shaft, stuck the head of the miscreant on it, where it remained for years. The tree was at or near the point where the roads from Henderson, Hopkinsville, and Morganfield intersect, and the place is called Harp's Head to this day. Soon after the head was gibbeted, someone ascended the tree and carved the head of a man under Harp's Head, and the effigy yet remains. About 4 years ago, the tree was struck by lightning, and nearly all its branches destroyed. Some months ago, it was again stricken with lightning, and the current set it afire, and all that remains of it is a charred trunk, a shaft 20 or 30 feet high, with the carved effigy still plainly to be seen.